Get ready for the world's greatest Arsenal podcast. Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. My name is Fergus. I am your host. Tonight I'm joined by El Capo. Dan's joining us, Capo Dan AFC. You will recognise him, it's just a different Twitter handle. And also Big T. Unfortunately, no Trev today. He's on his way down to London to catch a train to Bodo in the morning. And I'll tell you a little story about Alex, our Danish gooner, who let us down to watch, I think it's still a 0-0 draw, is it? Yeah, it's still a 0-0 draw. Tony, how are you doing?
I'm all good, mate. I've had sort of worse weeks in terms of football results. It's been a decent couple of weeks, I must say. And
how did you get it? I think you had difficulty mobility-wise at the football, didn't you, at the weekend?
I did, mate. Yeah, I've done a bit of ligament tissue damage in my ankle, so I was sort of hobbling along on Sunday. Chose not to have a beer before or after the game to be sensible, but I somehow got to the ground, and I must admit I wouldn't have missed it for the world, and even better when I got the result, which put us back top of the table.
It did. Where we belong. We still haven't beaten a big team yet, have we? That's why I asked in the title. Beating a big team. They're 14th in the league. 14 points behind us. 10th in the league, so it doesn't count.
They didn't they beat a team 9-0 a couple of weeks ago, and they now find themselves below that team that they beat 9-0.
It's not very ironic, isn't it?
Football's a funny old game.
It is indeed, and the amount of bleating that's happening from both the bin dippers and that lot down the road about various decisions, which we'll go through as well. Dan, how are you?
I've had a very good week, to be honest with you. Monday never felt like a Monday, and Tuesday didn't either today. So I've started the week in a fantastic mood. Everywhere I walk into, I bump into either Spurs fans or Liverpool fans, and I think I've never smiled so much in my life. So, great start.
I'm surprised
it goes downhill now. You're with us.
Well, yeah, I did think that. I saw your face. I thought, never mind.
Here we go. I'm surprised you're getting
one thing I'd like to start with, though, Fergus, if I can, just very quickly.
Go on, far away.
We are top of the league, looking right down the top. No man, the only explanation I can find is the fun we have found from the noise inside the ground, and the Arsenal are on top of the league. That's it, really.
Well, you're former singer, don't you? Tony, talk to me about this atmosphere that's happening in Block 5, Block 6. You know, how good is it, Tony?
Just to start off, mate, for all of Dan's enthusiasm, he doesn't have a tone in his vocabulary. He is tone deaf. But I love his enthusiasm and I love his passion. And people like Dan that's come into the scene and, throughout the ground, they're just creating an unbelievable atmosphere. And if you look at that video there, it's not just the youngsters that join in. It is everybody, mate, old and young, yourself included. It's just a fantastic atmosphere, and I think that it typifies what Arsenal is at the moment. It's a unity, it's a togetherness. There's a real positivity. There's a real belief at the moment. Arteta summed it up perfectly in his post-match interview after. We're enjoying it, but we haven't achieved anything yet, and there's still a long way to go. But for us fans, we're just enjoying the ride, mate. We've not had a group of players that we can get behind for a very, very long time, and that's just evident in performance, results. Before and after the games, there's not really any faults at the moment. There's nothing really bad or negative to say. It's just so positive at the moment, and long may it bloody continue, mate.
And Dan, you're all over TikTok these days. You're the man with the flag. You got score guy, and now you're going to be flag guy.
Yeah. Firstly, Tony, I'll have you know that me and Ed Sheeran have got a lot in common, and not just the hair colour. So definitely not tone deaf. No, it's because I've got a croaky voice. Normally my falsetto is brilliant, but not warmed up tonight. So
I'll look forward to the album.
Yeah, you won't. It'll be number one. It's from Arsenal. I don't know any other songs. They're the only ones I learn these days.
You'll have something of a hit, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I bet I will.
The thing is, though, we're getting in there early, and people are now gathering in the area, and they're coming on the scene. Dan, and you get people because they see it on Twitter and social media, get them pointing, going, "Oh, there's the fellow with the flag," and then there's a regular 10 or 15 that are coming, and there's more and more gathering around that, and it's getting a little bit of a name for itself. Okay, it's not the Ashburton Army. They do what they do down there, and all in the black and with smoke bombs and everything else. But I'm too bloody old for that crap. Alex couldn't be with us today because he got a last minute ticket to go to Copenhagen versus Man City, which is still 0-0. So I really hope you're enjoying that game, Alex, because here would have been far more riveting to be at rather than watching Man City down to 10 men. And the only good thing was the tifo. Before we go into the game, we did have the Londoners Red banner was back out again, but this time was in the East Stand. That's in the North Bank from last week. But here you got the Victoria Conqueste, and then you've got the Londoners Red. What did you make of having the two banners and having a banner in the East Stand, Tony? You've seen Red action over the years, gone to the football longer than me, and probably Dan as well. What did you make of finally seeing something moving around the stadium?
I must admit, I thought it was brilliant. I love the fact that when the players come out, there's something for them to see. It's not just about the North Bank and the clock end. I thought it was great. It gets picked up by the cameras, gets picked up by the players. You know, the world's watching, and to have bits and pieces, throughout the stadium now is really making a difference. And I just think that typifies that, when we can see, rather than being negative and down and we're getting behind the team. And I know people say, oh, it's only a tifo, it's only a banner, it's only a flag. But those small little details that the club are listening to, it's now the ripple effect is happening throughout the stadium, throughout the, even club level fans are, buoyant and in the boxes. This isn't just about lower tier. This is the whole stadium. And there's, I look back and we all mocked Jurgen Klopp a few years ago when they celebrated a 2-2 draw at home to West Brom. But that wasn't celebrating a 2-2 draw. That was starting to try and create something. And look what that created for them over the next sort of 5-6 years. And I get the impression that Arteta and Edu and the club are trying to do something similar. And when you look at the 18 months, the first year was just obviously half a year. But when you look at the last 18 months, the amount of positives to take from that, it's incredible. And we could look back in 10 years' time and say, what an unbelievable achievement. What is created? It's created, a unity, a togetherness. And like I just said earlier, just to allude to, long may it continue, mate, because we're in such a good place right now. And it's just so happy and pleasant to be going to Arsenal, not just to have a beer with your mates, but because of the football as well. Not many of us can say that for a long, long time.
You alluded to about Arteta and Edu and stuff, and I just saw something on Twitter before we went live. Have a look at this. It's only a minute long, but it's Arteta talking about the connection between the fans and the club.
My biggest purpose I was hearing all the time Arsenal fans talking about the club, about an individual, about the staff, about an owner. I said, if we get for them to really feel a sense of belonging and proud about the club and talk good things about each other, about the player, about the team is playing, about the owner, about the board, about the decision that we're making about recruitment, we have no limits. But if what we're doing is completely the opposite, then the potential can be really high or it can be really low. And now I hear people talking nicely about things. And I always said here, talk good things about each other, because that brings a different energy and vibration around the place. And can you quantify that? No. The level of trust between you and I, what is it? I don't know, I can't put a number on it, but I can feel it and I can sense it. And if I sense that you trust me and I trust you, our relationship will be much better.
Dan, thoughts on that piece?
I think he's pretty spot on, and I think there's a lot of good thoughts and good comments being made about us from top to bottom. And I think that started with the comments that have been made that I've heard a little bit about the board and the owners a little bit. I'm not really sure that opinions on sort of Stan himself has changed, but certainly from him down and his son and the guys that are running the club from the top seem to be in unison with the team and the fans and have just a plan that I think the fans can get on board with, and that the fans can see something tangible that's actually happening as a result of that. And I think, like Arteta said, that just brings everyone together, that they're all on board. And I think we've seen that in so many instances with the fans in the ground, that when we concede a goal, the fans' first thought is pick the team up, not complain. And I think we saw it again on Sunday.
No, I agree. Just a comment before we've gone to the actual game itself from Jack. Here says, it looks good, but the Red Action flags are a bit pathetic, if I'm honest. When you look at what Ashburton Army have got their own flags in. Two different organisations. Red Action have worked with the club and the fan base, and they're on the supporters trust, not supporters forum, and they represent a section in the North Bank and have done since the stadium was built. And a lot of what they get is funded and by the club. They get funding by the club. Where Ashburton Army, what they do is they've built something up. They've got permission and worked with the club, and they fund it themselves. So I also think that what they've built with the atmosphere down in that end is probably more a bit acceptable to have flags in there. I'd be fine with flags most of the time in the ground when, I don't know, half time when the teams come out and stuff like that, waving around. But I'm not sure if I'd want them going right throughout the game. I've been to Germany and I've been in Dynamo Dresden's K Block, and the flags going all the time, capo drums and everything else. It creates a great atmosphere, but I was there as a tourist. So it was fine for me just to experience it. But I think if you're actually trying to watch football, Dan, would you like somebody with flags waving them in your face?
I'd like a section for it, and I think I'd like people to be able to go in and out of it. But like you said, and we touched on this earlier, that everyone supports the team in a different way. So I think to have the opportunity to support them how you feel is good. So to have an area, but yeah, I don't think I can see that certainly in the North Bank yet. I think we've still got a different demographic of fans in the North Bank compared to the Clock End.
Okay, Tony, would you be on board with that sort of mindset?
I think that don't run before you can walk. We've made great strides and huge improvements. From a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, to the back end of Highbury days. Let's just continue seeing where we're going at the moment. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like Dan just said, we've got a different, completely different selection of fans, old, young, rich or poor. Let's just stick to what we're doing. Keep making these improvements. Keep doing what we're doing. And then obviously at the end of the season, if things have gone to that next level, then we can potentially look at other ideas and try and create the atmosphere even more and even further. But right now, I think, the flags before the game, the flags in the Clock End is great. But yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just keep doing what we're doing and building that unity and togetherness, because, the louder we are, the prouder we are. It seems to be generating and getting through to those players. So let's just continue doing what we're doing.
And we're going to have safe standing in next year, so that will be the North and the Clock End, North Bank and the Clock End segregated with safe standing. So maybe that's the time to look at it. Some of the older season ticket holders, because the North Bank is predominantly season ticket holders, where the Clock End is red, silver, and junior gunners, cannons, and stuff. They'll be able to move around into different areas. So if you're not forced standing all the time because you're ill health or whatever, or you just don't like it. You'll be able to move around the stadium. So I think you will have a slight change in the North Bank. But let's move on from there. We had a change in lineup, which I think all took us. We were told about it beforehand in the pub, and we're trying to in between chants. That who do you drop? Would you Zinchenko's not fit? Do you play KT or somebody randomly said, well, you can play Tomiyasu right back? Dan, what did you make when you saw the lineup? You remember the conversations we were having?
Yeah, to be honest, I was surprised to see him start, because having Tierney in the squad, I thought Tierney would start. I've always sort of had this opinion that Zinchenko would be more the guy that comes in when we're on the front foot. Tierney will be the guy that comes in maybe when we're up against it a little and we need to be a little bit tighter. But clearly they had a plan. It doesn't seem to be that it was down to a niggle for Tierney that I'm aware of. And I think Tomiyasu actually did a fantastic job of man-marking Salah. And from what Liverpool seem to do a lot is that when they do get pressed, the ball gets to Van Dijk and they play these diagonals across the Salah. And I think Tomiyasu cut those out fantastically. And that Tomiyasu is obviously a lot better in the air, has a bit more of sort of stature and height, and can sort of deal with those long balls. And I think that to win those balls, and win the ball back is just what helped us sort of push forward and win the ball high up the pitch still as well and be able to counter. So I think it obviously worked very well, but I was very surprised to see it.
Yeah, looking at the lineup was Ramsdale in goal, White, Saliba, Gabriel and Tomiyasu, Partey and Xhaka in the centre, which is definitely our best centre pairing. Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli and Jesus. We'll talk about Saka and Martinelli a little bit in particular and how they're working. And I'm just watching some of the Match of the Day stats and some stuff that Arsblog put up as well. It's some really interesting stuff. Tony, what did you make of the lineup and what do you think of Liverpool as well? They went to a 4-2-4 formation.
Yeah, pretty much what Dan just said. I think the lineup was what everyone expected, other than the sort of inclusion of Tomiyasu at left back. It took me by surprise a bit, but when you look at it on paper, you know, the heading ability and in terms of one-on-one defending, he's probably our best defender in terms of that one-on-one. So it sort of made sense. And then obviously when you see the game, you thought it was an absolute masterstroke to do that. Liverpool did surprise me a bit, mate, to go for, you know, considering the start we'd had this season and the improvements we'd made, and then the poor performance of a lot of, you know, then the struggles of Liverpool, to go to the Emirates and have 4 up front and play such an attacking formation did surprise me. I think it surprised a lot of people. But in all fairness, I thought Liverpool was the best I've seen them all season. At times, I thought they looked very similar to the Liverpool of old. Although the last 15 minutes, it looked like age had caught up with Liverpool. Their era was coming to an end. The pressing was virtually non-existent. And there were signs that Liverpool were getting back to their best in the game against us. But at the end, their pressing was like, it's probably the worst I've ever seen it. The way we controlled the ball was knocking it about. We looked like the experienced team that's been dominating for the last 3-4 years, where they just looked like, a few of their players just looked like they were getting over the hill. You know, they were sort of, that was their era and they were on the decline. It was, it was surprising. But obviously, ultimately, mate, for us, I couldn't give a shit what Liverpool do. It's what Arsenal do, and we got the 3 points. And obviously, we can move onwards and upwards, you know, to Leeds next week.
I expect because your leg was in such a situation, you actually got yourself into your seat prior to the kickoff, rather than having to hobble down 10 minutes late. So you would have seen 1 minute 50 seconds that goal going in by Martinelli.
Yes, I did, mate. I was in there 15 minutes before kickoff. I think it's the earliest I've ever gone to my seat. But yeah, it was obviously good. And, you know, what was it, 58 seconds or whatever you just said there, the Martinelli, It was unbelievable. And that certainly didn't do my ankle any good, because there was some limbs in there, and the noise when that goal went in and followed was unbelievable. It was right up there.
It was absolutely crazy. And Dan, it came from a moment of attack as well. I believe Liverpool had just, at the very start of the game, they came at us and they took the kick off and they came in and they tried to put a ball into, I can't remember who it was. And I think it was Gabriel or something like that, cut out the play and released what we'll talk about throughout the podcast is release Saka, who flies up the pitch on that wing. Martinelli goes up the other side. And the ball gets to Odegaard. Odegaard supplies it in. Talk to me about the goal.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of touched a little bit before the game, and I'd said to you that I thought that the first goal was absolutely key. And to get ahead in a game like that means that we can play our own game plan. And I think it just suited us perfect to have such a flying start. But it just showed how much we wanted it, to be honest with you. And I felt like that throughout the whole game, that the reason we won the game is because we wanted it more. And in transition, we can be a very, very fast, direct side, as well as keeping hold of the ball and playing good football. And when you've got a guy like Saka on the right and Martinelli on the left that are so direct, they just scare fullbacks to bits. And especially, a team like Liverpool, when they've got fullbacks that really vacate the position and create space, that's where the space is. And when you've got a guy like Saka, when he receives the ball on the right and he's facing up Van Dijk, he doesn't want to be faced up in that position, Van Dijk. He wants to be tight. He wants his fullback next to him, wants his other centre-back partner next to him, and he wants his defender midfielder in front of him. And then he's a bit more sort of protected. But we opened him up, and then they're completely out of shape. And then as soon as Odegaard gets the ball, you've got then a guy that's just got that little bit of sort of a spark, bit of magic that can open the team up and play that ball. Whereas most players would have probably played it wide to him. He played it in between the centre-back and the full-back. And then Martinelli again, so direct and a great finish. And just set us up for a brilliant start.
Supposed to get another point of view. Gunnar Hilsey.
Hello,
You sound like
boys.
you're in the toilet, mate. You sound like you're in the toilet.
I'm in the waiting room on the station. I've got it all to myself. So,
We're just into the game itself, and we're just saying about that first goal and the reaction, and Big T nearly losing his leg because he's already done his ligaments in and everything else. And then the reaction there afterwards, and how we tailed off, I suppose, a little bit. And you can see in this graphic here, you might on your phone, but you can see in the first half, a good proportion of the first half was Liverpool, and the second half was very much Arsenal. What did you make of that early goal and the first half performance?
do you know what, Fred? After I peeled myself off the ceiling, I thought to myself, we've scored really early here. I'm over the moon, but this could be dangerous. And our young players, they're so good, but I don't think they quite knew what to do from what I was seeing. Ferg, they didn't know whether to push on and go for the second or sit back and build on the one goal they've got, and that was I thought that was the only period of the game where Liverpool came back into it and actually had a go at us. And I think that honestly, Liverpool equalising when they did, although none of us wanted it to happen, it was probably just what the young Arsenal lads needed, because we came straight back to life after it. And when we're all thinking, let's get in at 1-1 at half time and we'll be all right, up pops our boy and puts 2-1 ahead. So I think we might have scored too early. I think we're a bit inexperienced, wasn't sure, but by God, didn't they play, eh?
They played fantastic. Tony, before that second goal, there was a penalty claim for Liverpool. Just going to put you on mute for a second.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. Yeah, go for it. Hang on.
There was a penalty claim. Gabriel handball in the box. I must admit, being there, I thought it was a handball. I saw the referee wave it on. I thought, just wait for VAR. VAR are going to give the penalty. What did you think, Tony?
Yeah, I must admit, mate, I was very, very similar. I see the incident. It was literally dead in line with my seat. So I saw it, and although there was no intention to handle the ball because of the position of Gabriel's arm, I just expected it to go to VAR and give a penalty. I've seen it again on replay, and although it possibly would have been a soft one, if that was us attacking, I'd be screaming for it. And I think it's more. I think the problem is, and it's always has been, is the consistency. You see one decision, it's given, one decision, it's not. Obviously, I'm happy that it wasn't given for us. But, taking my Arsenal hat off, that is why fans are getting the ump, because there's no consistency in it. You see at the weekend with the handball incident, Marcus Rashford. I didn't think that was handball, got disallowed. And yet Antonio literally pushes the ball down with his arm and the goal's given. So again, fans are moaning, not because of the decisions, just because of the level of consistency from the officials and the people in the VAR studio. So going back to the Gabriel, me personally, if that was on Arsenal, I'd be screaming and I'd want a penalty. But again, the word that keeps coming back to football is consistency, mate. And I don't know how long until we're going to get that level of consistency, because, it just seems to be getting worse. Obviously, again, to reiterate, I'm thankful that the decision, went in our favour this week. But, taking my Arsenal hat off, certainly the decisions need to be a bit more consistent.
Arnie says the rules say it wasn't a penalty. I don't know why they weren't, but it's probably something to do with T-shirt lines and
it's the proximity, isn't it? It's within a certain distance that they say proximity. But again, there's no right and wrong, because it's all subjective. So if you're in the studio this week and you say one thing, the following week I might not agree. It's down to me and my opinion. So there's no consistency. It's down to people's opinions.
Dan, your thoughts on...
I probably disagree with that, if I'm totally honest with you. And I think there's probably a couple of bits that I've heard about that I've seen on Twitter as well, and I sort of don't agree. For me, that's never a penalty, never in a million years. As a football fan, forgetting that it's Arsenal. I know you said about close proximity, but he is so close to him when he crosses the ball. That can never be a penalty. Anyone that's played football can never move his hand out of the way. Now, for me, they got that spot on, VAR, in my opinion. And I think they got our penalty spot on. I won't go too much into the penalty because I'm sure we'll touch on it later. But I think VAR got all those decisions spot on. For me, the one that they got wrong was the Newcastle game. Because for me, again, the Newcastle guy, he's got his back turned and his hands there. I know the hands are up in, they say it's unnatural, but you can't play football with your hands by your side. And his hands up there, and Gabriel's trying to sort of show him down the line. And he's less than a metre away. If that gets given as a penalty, we're going back to how it was last year, in my opinion, and how it is in Europe, where if it touches your hand and you're sort of not walking like a statue, it's a penalty. So
we've had it go against us a few times, Dan, though, haven't we, in recent years?
We have. But the problem is that VAR is changing year on year. So you can't really compare last year to this year because they are trying to tweak things and they are trying to improve things. And it isn't very often I've said I think they got it spot on, but I think the Liverpool game was exactly spot on as it should be throughout the whole game.
The Darwin Núñez goal, Trevor, do you want to talk about that one, and in particular his goal celebration, which is pathetic, really?
Well, firstly, I can't talk about Núñez until the penalty decision is finished off, Fergus, for me, because big time hit the nail on the head again. I'm sorry, Dan, I disagree with you slightly in that it doesn't matter what the rules say. It doesn't matter what any of us say. It just depends on what mood that VAR bloke is in on that day. We've seen them given, we've seen them not given. We've seen them given when it's definitely not a deliberate handball. We've seen them not given. And the massive word is what we've all said, Ferg, and we've banged on about it on this podcast, is consistency. All we want from fans is consistency. I thought that penalty was going to be given. I had no doubt in my head that VAR were going to change it. Not because I thought it was right. I agree with Dan from that perspective. The ball was very close. He couldn't move his hands. What can he do about it? But I thought it was going to be given because we've seen them given all too often. So who knows? As for the Núñez goal, don't care about the Núñez goal, but he's got to be careful with that celebration, any boy, because it'll come back and bite him massively on the backside.
34 minutes in, and he's gone to the North Bank crying. Doesn't he realise there's a lot of football to be played?
He did it. Didn't he? I thought he was just practicing for full time.
Oh, right, okay. Very good, very good. So we're coming up to half time, and Dan's beside me, and we're going, and everyone around us is just gone, let's get in, half time. We need half time. We need Arteta, our Big Steve, to come along and say, this is my club. I love my fucking club. But that wasn't Big Steve, clearly it was Gunnosaurus. But we needed somebody to speak to them and just hold them and keep their feet in the ground again. Because Liverpool did feel like they were in a bit of an ascendance at that point again. And up pops, this is the one from a defensive, we're in a defensive position. The ball breaks to Gabriel. Gabriel passes to Odegaard. Odegaard cross to Martinelli, and Martinelli puts it across. I don't know who was in the middle, but Saka gets on the end of it. And the place goes absolutely nuts. Dan, I've got bruises here. I've got bruises here. I'm absolutely battered after that game. Honestly, that was after having Tottenham the week before. No wonder I'm not feeling well.
Yeah, sorry about that. If that was me, I think I hugged everyone in the North Bank after that goal.
I don't know who it was. I
went on a bit of a surfing wave and hugged half the North Bank. But we needed that goal, and just not for anything other than a bit of belief. Because I think we had dropped off a little bit. I don't think we dropped off as much as people think intentionally, in my opinion. And I actually thought I saw a big difference from us in previous years. And I remember a couple of years ago we beat Liverpool at home, and we won then, and we won on Sunday. But for me, they're just totally different games. And Liverpool, as they are still a great side, and they came on to us. But I think we dealt with it really, really well. Liverpool were just very, very clinical in that game. But I think to play so well and to go in at half-time winning just picked them up a lot. And it picked the fans up because the fans coming in at half-time as well, the songs were going again. The fans were back believing, thinking, we can win this game. And then we started the second half, for me, fantastic. In the second half, bar the last 10 where we soaked it up well, we were by far the better side.
Yeah, no, and again, that heat map from Gunnerblog just shows like the second half we came out. What was said at half time, T? We've seen all or nothing. We've seen the way let's fucking do these guys can be done. And Arteta.
Sorry, where's he from?
That's just just answer the question. Well, go on. How do you think?
Pack it in, I'll just spat me fucking coffee out.
Oh dear. Go on, T.
Do you know what, mate? Funny enough, we went down 5 minutes before half time. As you know, it's really like to get a beer. So I went down with Georgie boy and bumped into his mate, and we were just talking about the game that we sort of went into our shell a little bit. Liverpool had come out, they'd sort of the ascendancy, and they started to believe Liverpool more. And I was saying, Saka had something happened with Saka, and I was like, you know what, the bloke needs a goal. His confidence was a bit low, and I felt that all his performances this season have not really. He's not got the reward so much. He's got a few assists, but he's not got the goals. And literally 2 minutes later, he goes and gets that tap in. And I think, like Dan said, the belief, from the players, the management, the fans on the concourse and in the stadium, it was like, do you know what? This is a different Arsenal. This is a resilient Arsenal. We're different to last season. We've learned our lessons. We're not crumbling. We're not going to crumble. We're top of the league, or, we're second at the time for a reason. People are starting to believe in. So I honestly don't think Arteta needed to say too much. Because I think the goal there, it's a great time to score. I think all he alludes to is, boys, you've gone back in the lead. You're top of the table for a reason. Continue to believe in yourself. Play together. The fans are behind you. So, yeah, the first 10, 15 minutes after that second half, I thought we should have ripped Liverpool to shreds. We had 2 or 3 chances to really kill the game off. And it was like, Jesus Christ, what am I watching? This is unbelievable. And then in a blink of an eye, Liverpool go and equalise. So it was a bit of a shock. But again, the setbacks don't seem to be, stopping us at the moment, because the fans then start cheering again. The players start believing again. And I don't know, it's very hard to explain this season with Arsenal, but there's a different belief and resilience. And we alluded to the other week, didn't we, that the problem with Tottenham last season and Newcastle could be the best thing that's ever happened to Arsenal football, the best thing in the next 10 years that could happen to Arsenal Football Club, because they don't want that repeating. There's that fire in that belly that's really spurring this Arsenal team on. And for us, we've just got to continue and enjoy the ride, because we don't know when it's going to end. It may not end for the rest of the season. We don't know. But for now, we're enjoying it. We're not getting ahead of ourselves. And I just think that Arteta's team talks are sort of already being written and said without him needing to say too much.
Apparently, you could be a motivational talker yourself, T. Andy Fink. Trev.
Said no one.
Said no one. Firmino scores that goal on the 53rd minute. He's now scored 10 goals against Arsenal. He's the most prolific Liverpool player to score against Arsenal, with the only other Premier League one being Robbie Fowler. There's a couple of others in when it was non-Premier League, which goes way back for me. What did you make of the goal? I thought, was it because, as Tony said, we were all over them. We were pushing up. And did we leave ourselves a little bit exposed by pushing up that bit too high?
Yeah, it was very similar to the 2 goals we gave away against Manchester United, wasn't it? We were looking the better side, and it just come completely against the run of play. I didn't expect it to come, but that second goal, you boys are telling me what it was like in the ground, but I sat there at home, and I'm thinking now, wow, this is massive now, because this is a young Arsenal side. This is an Arsenal side that's been pegged back twice in this game. History says we're now going to turn up our tail and we're going to lay there and let Liverpool run all over us, because our heads are going to go down. So now let's see what happens. And the reaction to that second goal was just, I don't think Liverpool got another look in really after that, did they? We were absolutely superb. I was so proud of the players, every single one of them. Special mention for me, I don't like picking out players in a game like that, but a special mention for me, we talked about prolific goal scorers, and I know he's been off form this season, but Mo Salah was substituted out of the game. When Liverpool needed a goal, Mo Salah was substituted out of the game. Because Tomiyasu absolutely pocketed him. The bloke just didn't have a look in. Such a fantastic performance from that lad at left back of ours. So, yeah, that goal, Fergus, it came against the run of play, but it kick-started us, and it did what I was praying we would do. And we took off, and then I know you're going to talk about it in a minute, so I won't dwell on it, but I was so proud of Bukayo Saka. When you talk about the penalty, I'll come back in, Ferg, but I was so proud of that young man.
Dan, anything to add on the Firmino goal? Somebody in the comments said Aaron Ramsdale could have done a little bit better. I think it's probably a little bit harsh, personally, but what did
I
you
don't
think?
he could have, to be honest. Sometimes you just have to give a bit of credit to a team that had a bit of quality. For me, it's a good finish. If he puts it anywhere else, he gets saved. He's put it the only place for me that he's not going to save it. I don't think he expected it to take it at that time. Just a very clinical finish from Liverpool. They've got quality about them, but look, I think we won that game because we wanted it more than them. I think that was how it seemed to me, that the players were just up for it and they really wanted it. The fans wanted it. I wouldn't say there was an expectation, but there was a big, big belief before that game that we could win it. And I felt that the players believed that too. And it just showed with how we started each half.
Yeah. We're now up to the point, 76 minutes, Saka gets a penalty. Thiago fouls Jesus. We'll come into you last on this one, Trevor, because I know where you're going to come on this, more on the Saka sort of stuff. But I want to talk about, one, Tony, did you think it was a penalty? And two, the hoo-ha about Gabriel and Henderson. We don't know what was said. We can speculate if you want, but we're not going to. But it didn't look pleasant, did it?
First and foremost, I thought the penalty straight away. I thought it was a penalty. I thought he clipped in. I've seen the replay. It is a little bit of soft, but in the new rules, and this is where there has been a little bit more consistency in this tackle. He's clipped him. He goes through the back of his calf. Yes, it is a bit soft, but at least there's more consistency. And like I say, I think it was a penalty. I'm not going to speculate on the Henderson Gabriel because I don't know what happened. He'd already had a couple of arguments before Henderson. For whatever people are saying, I'm not sure if he's that character, he's that type of person. But listen, we don't know.
I think people are surmising stuff.
Yeah, they're speculating too much, mate. And at the end of the day, none of us do. None of us know what he did or didn't say. So it's no point talking about that. What I will say is, I know the fans' opinion of this person has changed massively. But I just love Granit Xhaka when he just will always stick up and stand up for his teammates. Always. You know what? And it was good to see that Gabriel was there and Xhaka was like, no, listen, I ain't having this. That's my teammate. You ain't touching him. You ain't going near him. And there was 3 or 4 people around Xhaka at one point. Nunez, I think, in defence was sort of trying to pull him away and break it up. But then you see, you see old Benny Blanco running over there. You see Saka. You see a few more boys. This is now a team that's together. They're not separated. They're together as one. And they go running over because that's their teammate. So it's great to see the team spirit at the moment, regardless of whether you like those little, incidents, those little, rows. But yeah, obviously, why
as fans, when we see the pushing and shoving, it's great because we can just scream and shout and go, ah! As a way just to like scream and shout.
But you know what was even better is that the whole turnaround of Xhaka. I know we've spoke about him a few times this season, and other podcasts have done it as well. But for the fans, then why he's in that ruckus, for the whole fans in the North Bank to be singing his name, getting behind him as our player because they've seen him stand up. I just thought it just typifies what Arsenal is at the moment. It was just a real togetherness, and it's great to see. And like I say, long may it bloody continue.
Trev, talk to us about the penalty. I will talk about your blog as well after we've done the game. But talk to us about the penalty.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I thought it was one of them again that if it wasn't given, you could have seen why it wasn't given, but you could also see why he gave it, and we were very grateful to get it. And then it all kicked off, didn't it, as Tony was just talking about, with Henderson and Xhaka and Gabriel, and all this time the young man, Saka, he stood over the ball, waiting. He's missed a penalty for England last year as a young lad. It's a massive game. He's waiting and waiting and waiting. And then just ran up like it didn't bother him in the slightest, didn't he? Just cool as you like. Even the keeper, it was that good a penalty. The keeper went the right way and still never got near it. That's always a sign of a good penalty. When the keeper goes the right way and the right height, and the ball still hits the back of the net, you know that's a class penalty. Just picking up on what Tony said there, about the players and the team. It's the way I summed it up, Berg, is that we've got 11 players on the field, as we've always had 11 players on the field in recent years. Every team has 11 players, but not every team as a team of 11 players. They might have 11 players and half a dozen of them will be prima donnas, not wanting to be part of that team. Whereas you look at what we've got now and you think that lot would die for each other. They would put their necks on the line for each other. And that's so important in a team sport. So important in a team sport. And you've got to give Granit Xhaka a lot of credit for that. Watching him now, he's coming to his own. Not just the way he's playing the game, but the way he's conducting himself. He's a completely different man, isn't he? He's a completely different man, and long may it continue.
On a penalty, Saka stepping up after all the crap and everything else he took, and not far from where we normally are, around between block 5 and 4, was the wall with all the letters from the young kids that wrote into him. For him to step up in that moment in time to take the winning goal in the penalty, he's got some cojones, hasn't he?
Of course he has. He's the most. I'll put my neck on the line. I know you're going to talk about the blog, and I thank you for that, Davis. Thank you very much. But I'll put my neck on the line and say, right now, he's possibly the best young player I've seen at Arsenal in my lifetime, in my time watching Arsenal. And trust me, I've seen some stars come through them ranks. But this lad, he really excites me. Something special.
The only last thing to really talk about on the game, we had with Gabriel, with the performance of Saka and Martinelli. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit more about like these? Again, I didn't share these with you beforehand. I'd show them briefly, but you've got Saka on the right and you got Martinelli on the left, and you can just see it's definitely a game plan to get them up and have Jesus and Odegaard in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, we touched it, or I touched on it a little bit earlier at the start. For me, when you play Liverpool, where the space is. It's in between the fullbacks. And you've seen teams like Man United that have had success by being very, very direct into that space. And when you've got guys like Martinelli and Saka that are just so good one-on-one that can commit players, if you can get the ball into them direct and you can isolate someone out of position, you're going to create chances and you're going to get sort of, further up the pitch into their box and beat their press. And Liverpool have always been a team that's very, very good at pressing, and that's where they sort of contain teams and they put them under such pressure. And when you can't keep the ball for big periods of the game, you do sit into a shape. And that for us was our outball, the way of getting up the pitch, getting out. And I think Trev was spot on when he says, I read his blog as well and sort of maybe lead you into what you'll touch on in a minute, but Saka is just an unbelievable talent. And I don't know if he's the best young player I've seen, but I think he's certainly up there in the top couple. I think Jack in the chat said Cesc, and I think that's obviously one of the main ones that stands out to me. Certainly in his younger days, although he wasn't with us for a long time. Anelka, unless you're sticking to just people that come from the academy. But how broad are his shoulders? You listen to the Peter Drury commentary he had on that penalty. To go through what he's been through, he wants to be that guy that steps up and is our match winner and is the guy that's going to win us not just games, but for me, trophies in years to come. And it's him and Martinelli that are the two guys that for me are going to carry this club.
Trev, on gunsandyellowribbons.com, occasionally Tony and Trev do blogs. I'm crap at speaking, never mind writing. And there was one that you done was your observations from a TV viewer by Hilsey. And I really enjoyed it, and I recommend people to go and have a look and have a read of it. But some of the points that you made on here, Liverpool kicked Saka all over the park, particularly in the first half. And I think that was Michael Oliver, I think the referee. They let a lot go these days, but I just thought I wasn't overly pleased with his overall performance. We looked better throughout the whole game. Martin Tyler truly doesn't like it, but do we care? And Turkey Teeth Klopp was mastered by Arteta. Trev, you enjoy doing these, don't you?
I do, Fergus. I've not been in the right frame of mind to do them in the last few months, but we know the reasons why. I'm not going to dwell on that, but I watched that game on Sunday and I thought, I've got to write about that game. I'm so excited about it. I've got to write about that game because it was so special. It was so special. And I appreciate you taking the time to show it on here, Fergus. Mate, listen, boys, I'm going to have to go because my train's about to come in, my next train. So I don't think I'll get back on because on the train I won't have so good a signal.
That's fine.
Dan,
Enjoy Bodo.
oh,
We're gonna talk about Bodo shortly, but you enjoy it,
Yeah.
mate.
Well, I'll try and give you a shout tomorrow night, Fergus, from Bodo. Dan, I'll be on that train on Sunday, mate. I'll get on it at Grantham. Text me and let me know what coach you're sitting in, and I'll wave to you from first class, mate. All right. And
I'm blocking you now.
listen, don't just be careful with your flag on Sunday because then Leeds fans took a big dislike to Fergus last season, and I wouldn't like to see us get in any trouble. But love you all, boys.
It wasn't me. I was our mate Potsy that they were having a go at.
Oh, was it? Oh, right.
Yeah.
All right,
I was the
then.
Irish
Boys, I love you all. Thank you for letting me talk. I wasn't going to come on tonight, but when I saw who was on, I was desperate to get on because I love talking to you three, and I can't wait to get back to the Emirates. It will be soon. So exciting, isn't it? Just before I go, so exciting what we're seeing at the Arsenal. I've not felt this buzz for years. Wonderful. Boys, I'll try and talk to you tomorrow, but I'm off now. All right. Love you all. Take care, boys.
Safe travels, mate. Take care, pal.
They travel up the Arsenal.
Thanks, boys. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
I am
So,
just
Trev-
touching on that very, very quickly, Fergus. I was chatting to Trev last night, and he said, be careful in Leeds. There was a few fans that took a dislike to Fergus, and I just said, well, to be fair, that's not just Leeds fans, is it? Really, but
Now we were.
Do you know what, Dan? I was going to say that when Fergus was when Trevor was talking, I thought, no, I won't jump in there. I'll leave Fergus alone tonight.
Now people might have seen it. We done it was me and Potsy walking up from the Dry Salter, and we saw the team announcement. We were just talking about what the lineup was, and there was a bunch of 20-something-year-olds behind us, mixed bunch of people, and they're going, "I'm going to cut you up, you Cockney," and this got to cut you up. No, I'm gonna spark you out, you Cockney. This, that, and the other. And we just ignore them. We carry on talking until one of the guys, an Asian one, come along and goes, I'm gonna slash your throat, you Cockney. This, that, and the other. And at that point, I turned around and said, "Sorry, mate, I'm Irish. Does that still count?" I know. Oh, it's only banter. I said, "It sounds like banter, jog on, sort of thing." And that's what happened. But it's that and Manchester were the two places I found were the most unpleasant. Manchester United, that is, I found were the most unpleasant. Everywhere else, I've not had any issues whatsoever. T, you've been around loads of places. Where would you say is your least favourite away day?
I think the obvious is the least is also my most favourite away day, and it's Tottenham away. It's a different breed down there with the pints of piss being chucked over you, and trying to jump you, and that. To be fair, it's a water for ducks back and that. But that's the only place I've ever. The last ever game of White Hart Lane was different, and that's probably the most sort of so-called intimidating. But like I say, other than that game, I've been to Tottenham, Germany, Italy, wherever with Arsenal, and
it does help that you're 7 foot tall.
Yeah, to be fair, I've never. It's just. Again, you've got to be sensible as well. You've got to be sensible who you're with and what you do. But on the whole, to be fair, I've never really had any trouble at football. It was only that one game. And to be fair, other than that, there's I don't think you get certain people, certain crowds that, you more so at Tottenham that when you're certain areas, nothing gets said. You get to the bottom and there's all police and vans and stewards, and all of a sudden everyone wants a fisticuff. But there's fans on it from every club that gives it when they're a bit more protected, and that's just unfortunately part and parcel of football. But again, like I'm one of those. If you want to fight, let's get in a boxing ring or something. Going down the football and fighting ain't my cup of tea anymore.
No. Trev's en route to Bodo, as we just said. He's, I think he gets in about 10:30 tonight to Gatwick and flies out early to Oslo. He's got a 3-4 hour layover in Oslo, and then on to Bodo. Gets into Bodo late tomorrow afternoon. Him and Terry are going. They're two of 404 fans that are going. They can pick up their tickets at 2:00 on Thursday. There's a hotel down near the port. It'll be a very nice town, very expensive. £20 a pint. So Trev doesn't buy many beers, so he'll be all right. Artificial pitch. They've got an artificial pitch. If we get 3 points here, it virtually guarantees us qualification, Dan. We'll be on 9 points after 3 games. And then we've got 2 games against PSV back-to-back because of the Queen's funeral and everything else. We're at home first. You'd like to think that we'd win at home. But even if we got a point, that guarantees us top spot, don't you think?
Yeah, it should do. I think I'd prioritise the game at home, to be honest, against PSV, because I don't think you can put out and I say a weakened team because I don't think it's a weakened team nowadays, but a weaker team, and PSV have a lot of quality. But if you're going to risk players on an artificial pitch out in Bodo, I'm not sure that's worth the 3 points. If we was to pick up an injury to a key player but still win, I wouldn't come away from that game thinking it was worth it. I know it's a strange feeling to feel like that, but imagine a key player like a Partey or Jesus or a Saka or someone. I certainly don't think I'd be risking those sort of players. So that's the only thing that makes me nervous for this game.
Okay, T, what's your views on that? Would you be pushing all out for getting 3 points on Thursday?
I'd be pushing to get the 3 points, but like Dan just said there, mate, I wouldn't be risking. Certainly Partey going near a plastic pitch. He's the one player because, to some extent, every other position we've got, certainly right backs and left backs. We've got people who can come in and out of the squad that can fill.
It's got to be a Lokonga game, hasn't it? Yeah.
Partey for me, you do not even. I'm hoping he's not even travelled. Xhaka again to a certain extent, but you think for the next 3 games, if someone wants to get injured, they're the games. If anything's going to happen, these are the games you want things to happen. But I must admit, I'd go with a very very similar, if not the same team that started last week. I'd give Turner another few minutes. You play even Tomiyasu right back, Tierney have a run out at left back. Tierney would be dependent on the severity of Zinchenko's injury, because we can't afford to have both of those missing.
No.
So if for instance that it's just a precautionary with Zinchenko, I'd give Tierney. If not, give Cedric some minutes. Give Nelson some minutes. Give Marquinhos, Vieira, Nketiah a minutes. We sort of wanted a much improved squad, and this is the game that we're going to be able to afford those little bit of luxuries. Again, I don't want to take them for granted, but with the squad that we've got and the team that started last week, we should still go there and do a job. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we should still be doing a job. And, for the players that are on the sideline and in the squad, these are the opportunities they're waiting for. Go and grasp those opportunities with 2 hands. If you're a Vieira, you go, right, I'm going to stake a claim because I want to take Martin Odegaard's place. If you're a Lokonga, he should be going, I want to take Thomas Partey's place. I'm not saying they will take their places, but that should be the mindset of each of these players in the squad going, I want to get to this level. I want to be in the first team. I want to be getting more minutes. So when you do get the opportunities, you have to grasp them with both hands.
No, I agree. But the importance of finishing top of the group can't be missed because it means we have 2 less fixtures in February, and we've already got a fixture pile up with Man City and Everton being rescheduled because of Queen's thing and the PSV game and so on. We don't face any immediate dropouts of the Champions League, the third place dropouts that in that round. So you progress automatically to the round of 16. West Ham progressed automatically to the round of 16, and they end up getting to the semi-finals. Now, I'm not speaking ill of West Ham, but I look at us even last year. I think we were a better team than West Ham, and I think we could have probably got ourselves to the finals against Frankfurt if in the same position. And that was the key was that they didn't have to play that February slot. Dan, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't want those extra games. It's a very tight season with the World Cup, so the more games like that we can do without, the better. Top of the group has always got to be the aim because you will play other teams that haven't finished first in the group. It does mean in a very difficult time. I think is it February that the next knockout round will be in February time?
Yeah, it'll be late February.
Very busy period of time. There's always around that time the cup games, that have started again. You don't want to be playing extra games when you don't need to. My only, as I said, concern would be at the risk of big players being injured, maybe we have a bit of weighing up to do in what squad we put out. But I think we will finish top of the group. I think we're a good enough squad to be finishing top of that group. Bodo away will not be an easy game, especially in the cold on that pitch. But that team that played them last week has enough quality to beat them again. They were very spirited against us last week, and they will be even more so at home. But given the chances, I think we will be more clinical than they are. I think we're a much, much better side.
Yeah, just looking at the Met Office as we speak, I don't think they're go away except all. On Thursday, they've got 10 degrees, 9 degrees at night, and it's 7 o'clock their time. So, yeah, it's going to have a little bit of sunshine and cloud, maybe an odd shower. So I don't think it's going to be the most inclement time to go to Norway and play a game of football. Listen, you mentioned the World Cup. The fixtures we've got left before the World Cup is Leeds away, Southampton away, Forest at home, Chelsea away and Wolves away. We've got one league game left at home before the World Cup. Tony, does that worry you, all those away games?
No, fixtures are fixtures. I think I always said that after the start we had with the first few games, if we're top 1 or 2 or in the top 4 in a really good position come the World Cup, it only enforces my belief in Arteta and the squad, because the few gaps I still think we need filling can be done in January. If we're in a position where we're playing catch up, it makes our job a lot harder with the players we sign. If we're now in a position where everyone's catching up to us, the jobs that we have to bring players in is to fill the gaps and just continue the work. I personally think that the fixtures are kind. I know, like Forest at home, Leeds away, that is never going to be easy. Southampton away, but if you're looking at a run of fixtures now to really cement your place in top 4, obviously football's not played on paper, but they're the sort of fixtures you'd be having. Okay,
Absolutely.
You might have a few more at home, but in the run up in our rich vein of form and why these teams are struggling, these are the times you want to be going to these places. You don't want to be going there in the winter when we're in a bad run and they've got the fans all on their side. We want to be going there when there's no real positivity. They're struggling and the momentum's on our side, and we have to continue that. And if we've got the opportunity now to go into the World Cup in such a strong position that, let's be honest, even me, the most positive of Arteta fan, didn't expect us to be this flying. So we've got a real chance to cement that top 4 position. Come the World Cup.
Well, the question I was going to ask you before I go to closing with Dan was: do you think we can be top of the league come the World Cup?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Even more if we was to win, if we go and beat Leeds the weekend, that adds more pressure to Man City going to Anfield on Sunday. Look, do we think we're going to win the league? No, none of us really truly believe we're going to win the league, because we think ultimately City are too good, especially with Haaland.
Yeah, with Haaland, they've got a bit. It's the depth of squad.
For me and most sensible Arsenal fans, our target at the start of the season was to cement top 4, get back into the Champions League, and possibly win Europa League, FA Cup or League Cup. The season, the start that we've had has got us believing. But whatever happens at this moment in time, our targets have not changed. We've still got to be realistic. We've still got to maintain a level of expectation. There's no point in, expecting to win the league now after 9 games, because there's still a long season to go. We've still got a relatively thin squad. Right, it's a lot better than what it has been in recent years. We've still just got to be realistic and maintain that level of, we're improving, we're confident, but let's not get arrogant. Let's not get complacent. Let's keep taking one game at a time. We go and beat Leeds the weekend, and we can relax and watch the Liverpool Man City game. If they drop points, then it gives us a little bit more belief and a bit more, positivity going into Southampton away. So let's just take it game by game and see where it takes us. But I think, expectation and realism still needs to be kept as what it was at the start of the season.
Totally agree, T. Dan, on the way up to Leeds on Sunday to watch the game, your expectations of those 5 fixtures: Leeds, Southampton, Chelsea, and Wolves away, and Forest at home.
I think
And can we be top of the league?
Yeah, I think firstly, just really looking forward to those games, because people talk about a test against big teams. This is a test in a very, very different way. And we won, I think, if you look at those games, we didn't play Forest at home last year. We played them away in the Cup. But take the other 4. We won 3 out of those 4 games last year. But I think in quite a few of them, you can probably say sort of mitigating circumstances that were sort of, on those occasions. We won away at Leeds. I think it was 5-1. They had an awful lot of injuries and suspensions.
4-1 with 15-year-old fielded, yeah.
Yeah, we won away at Chelsea. They had no fans. They've still got none now, but there'll be more in the stadium. We didn't beat Southampton, although we played well and we lost 1-0. And Wolves, we scraped a win and dug in. They're not easy games. So for me, if we come out of those games with wins, that really lays down sort of the gauntlet as such to the team chasing us. And I think there's no reason in this form, with this confidence, we can go through, I think like Trevor said, go for October unbeaten and be top of the league by the World Cup. And if we get to the World Cup top of the league, I think Tony's spot on. I don't think people believe we're going to win the league. But I've certainly started to believe that we could. And I think I'm starting to believe that as a fan with my heart more than my head. But the longer you go through just ticking off points on the board, get through stages of the season with the confidence still there, the fear factor builds when teams come to play us. And if we get
the stadium, the atmosphere in the stadium as well, it's becoming a bit of a fortress as well.
And we saw this with Leicester a few years ago. Everyone said, no, they won't win the league. Now, I'm not suggesting we're a Leicester. I think we're a better side than that in terms of being a sort of front foot attacking team. Like that Leicester side was a great side, but not quite the sort of forward attacking side. But belief started to build in that team and the fans got behind them. And I remember so many big teams going to Leicester and losing 1-0. And everyone kept saying, the next one, no, they're going to trip up. Next one, they're going to trip up. Next one, they're going to trip up. Game by game, they just kept knocking them over. 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. And there's no reason why we can't do that.
No, I can't disagree. I think the longer goes on, there's a belief. There's obviously clearly a belief within Arteta and the squad. They're not getting carried away, as you said, Tony. Ben White, in his interview, was so non-committal. It was unreal. But, they've just said take it game by game.
But do you know what? The response that we've had to the one blip we've had this season has been unbelievable. After losing to United, who, to be fair, even the pundits that hate Arsenal the most, the Keens and all that, have said Arsenal played really well that day. They were unlucky. This wasn't an Arsenal team that had gone to these big clubs and lost previously. This was an Arsenal team that was actually quite unlucky. There was a couple of incidences throughout the game and a bit of naivety, but on the day we played really well. So then go to Brentford and win 3-0 very, very comfortably. We could have won 6, 7, 8-0. To then go and, obviously the 2 Europa League games sandwiched all in between, but then to go and beat Tottenham at home very, very comfortably, I thought. Yes, they had a sort of 10, 12 minute spell in the first half, but we comfortably won. To then go and beat Liverpool, and I know that it was only 3-2, but I thought we run out, truly deserving winners of that game. So to bounce back from that blip, we are going to have another blip in the season. We might have a couple of blips. We don't know. But I'm more confident now in this team to turn it around. This ain't going to be a blip of 4, 5, 6, 7 games where we're going, shit, we are plummeting. This is a quick turnaround, and the belief and the attitude and the mentality in this team, the manager and us fans, is completely different to last year and previous seasons. So when we do have a blip, I don't think it's going to be a long-term blip. I think we're going to be able to turn those moments of adversity and quickly get back on the winning sort of on the.
You mentioned some teams in there, and you said we've beaten some big sides, but apparently we haven't just yet. So on that note, Tony, Dan, thank you very much. Trev, I know you're in the chat. Enjoy Bodo, and have a safe journey. And I'll probably speak to you tomorrow anyway. But if you have already subscribed to our YouTube channel, thank you very much. It's gone up to 765, I think, now, or something like that. And we're trying to get to 1,000 by Christmas. It'd be great if you did. But we are Arsenal fans. We do this, just chat like this, like mates. Nobody's watching. We don't care. We're still going to chat like this anyway. But you haven't listened to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Up the Arsenal.
You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons and Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too.